They told me my daughter was gone. I held her empty crib and cried until I couldn't breathe. 10 years passed in a blur of grief and silence. Then she walked into my house, calling me Mom. But someone in my family sold her, and I was about to find out who. I still remember the first time I saw her walk in, as if it had been yesterday. My name is Claire, and for 10 years, I lived every day as if a part of me had been ripped away. My husband, David, tried to hold us together, but grief had its own plan. My parents were devastated, and my younger son, Luke, barely remembered his sister. And then she came back, and nothing would ever be the same. It was a quiet Wednesday morning when my life tilted again. I was in the kitchen, stirring coffee that had long gone cold, watching the sunlight stretch across our living room floor. The smell of toast, slightly burnt, filled the air, a small comfort, a reminder that life moved on, even when I hadn't. Luke, now 12, was at the dining table, scribbling something in his notebook, unaware of the storm about to land at our door. I had almost given up hope. 10 years ago, my toddler daughter, Emma, had been taken from me in what the hospital called a tragic accident. They said she had died in my arms, or so the official report claimed. I remember the nurses' trembling hands, the beeping machines, the sterile smell of disinfectant mixed with the faint scent of baby powder. I remember screaming, and no one listening. And then silence. For 10 years, I carried that silence with me. I forced myself to go to work, cook meals, kiss Luke goodnight. I smiled when I could, laughed when it felt safe. I buried the past in routines, pretending that everything was okay. But grief doesn't leave quietly. It lingers in the smell of a baby's shampoo, in the sound of a lullaby you used to sing, in the shadows of your own house. David had tried to move on, but the gap left by Emma was always there, in the empty side of the bed, in the hollow spaces at birthday parties, in the way our friends avoided the topic. And the worst part? I started noticing little things, little cracks in the smiles of my family, small hints that maybe someone else knew more than they were letting on. I remember that morning clearly. The doorbell rang just as I was pouring milk into Luke's cereal. A girl, tall for her age, stood on the porch, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She had dark hair, tied in a loose braid, and green eyes, the same eyes Emma had. I froze, milk halfway to the bowl, staring at her. "Mom?" she asked, her voice hesitant, trembling just slightly. The word hit me like a punch. I dropped the jug. Milk spilled over the linoleum, splashing at my feet, and Luke looked up, confused. "Mom, who's at the door?" he asked. I don't know," I whispered. The girl stepped closer, and I could see the small birthmark on her left wrist, the one Emma had, the one only I had ever kissed goodnight. My heart stopped. My hands shook. My legs felt like lead. "Claire, it's me," she said, and my world shattered into a million pieces. I wanted to scream, to cry, to fall down and never get up. I wanted to ask how, why, and who had the right to take my daughter away. But at that moment, I just stood there, frozen, watching the child I had thought dead, alive, breathing and calling me Mom. The next few minutes were a blur. Luke stared, wide-eyed. David came from the backyard, wiping his hands on his pants, and froze the moment he saw her. The girl, Emma, stepped inside, her small hand reaching for mine, and I felt everything I had lost for 10 years rush back in a tidal wave of emotion. But beneath the joy, beneath the disbelief, something darker lingered. This wasn't just a miracle. Someone had lied. Someone in my life had betrayed me. And the truth would soon unravel everything I thought I knew about my family. I remember the quiet moment before I asked the first question, the one that would change everything. "Emma, how did you?" My voice cracked. She looked down at her hands, then back at me. Her lips trembled. "Mom, I've been looking for you." It was a simple sentence, but it carried a decade of secrets, of lies, of pain. And as she said it, I knew this was just the beginning. The investigation, the confrontations, the revenge, it was all waiting. And somehow, I would have to survive it to reclaim my daughter. The air in the house felt heavy, the morning sunlight suddenly too bright. I didn't know it yet, but my life was about to turn into a storm I could never have prepared for, a storm that had been brewing for 10 long years. And as I held her for the first time, feeling the warmth of her small body against mine, I realized one terrifying truth. The people I trusted most might be the ones who betrayed me. I took a shaky breath. "Emma, tell me everything." And she did. I couldn't stop staring at her. Emma, or whoever she was, sitting on our couch with that nervous, fragile look, her fingers fidgeting with the straps of her backpack. The sunlight streaming through the window hit her just right, highlighting the curve of her jaw and the small birthmark on her wrist. My heart, which had been frozen for 10 years, felt like it might explode. Luke had gone quiet, eyes wide, and even David looked like he'd just swallowed a punch. The house smelled faintly of burnt toast and coffee, a smell so ordinary it made this surreal moment hit even harder. I had to know. I had to hear the truth. "Emma, I need you to tell me everything," I said, my voice trembling. She swallowed and looked down at her lap, nodding slowly. "I don't remember everything, but I know my name is Emma, and I've been looking for you for a long time." Looking for me? My mind raced. How? Where had she been? Why hadn't anyone tried to contact me? 10 years of silence, 10 years of grief, 10 years of my heart aching for a child I thought was dead, and suddenly, she was here. She hesitated, then spoke again. I was told I couldn't come back, that it wasn't safe, that you wouldn't want me. A chill ran down my spine.
Who told you that?
I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She shook her head. "I don't know, it was someone at the hospital. And someone else, someone close to you." My stomach sank. My own family? The thought made bile rise in my throat. For 10 years, I had mourned, suffered, and tried to survive, only to discover that the people I trusted might have been the ones to sell my daughter for money, to hide her, and to lie to me. I had to think. I couldn't let my emotions take over. But my heart ached, and I could feel tears pricking at the corners of my eyes.
10 years gone.
And it wasn't fate or chance, it was betrayal. David, sensing the storm inside me, cleared his throat. "Claire, maybe we should let her sit down, breathe. She's been through a lot too." I looked at him, a mixture of frustration and gratitude. He was trying to help, trying to calm the chaos inside me. But calm wasn't possible right now. I needed answers. I needed the truth. "Emma," I said softly, "can you remember anything about the hospital? Anything at all?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, I remember a woman. She looked familiar, someone who seemed kind, but she didn't stop them. She said it was for the best." For the first time, the pieces started clicking together. The hospital accident. The strange behavior of my mother when Emma was born. The way my aunt had insisted I shouldn't visit that day. The hurried conversations David and I overheard when we tried to ask about Emma. My hands shook as I realized the horrifying possibility. Someone I loved, someone I trusted, had decided to sell my daughter. And now, 10 years later, that betrayal was staring me in the face. I could feel anger bubbling up, but I forced myself to sit down. I couldn't explode yet. I needed a plan, a way to uncover the truth without losing what little control I had left. Emma watched me carefully, her green eyes wide and wary. "Mom, are you angry?" she asked softly. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the storm inside me. "I am," I said honestly, "but I'm also so glad you're here. So glad you came back to me." She hesitated, then leaned slightly closer. "I've been safe mostly, but I want to know why they did it. And I want to be with you." Her words hit me like a punch. She trusted me instantly, even after 10 years apart, even after the betrayal that had shaped her entire childhood. I had to be strong for her. I looked at Luke, who was quietly watching from the table. His little face was full of confusion, hurt, and curiosity. "Mom, is she really Emma?" he asked, his voice soft. I nodded, fighting tears. "Yes, Luke, it's your sister." David stepped closer and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Claire, we need to be careful. This isn't just about feelings. Someone out there made money off this, and they might still try to cover it up. I nodded, determination setting in. He was right. This wasn't just a reunion story. This was an investigation, a confrontation, and eventually, justice. For now, though, I let myself hold her. 10 years lost, but now back in my arms. And as I felt the warmth of her body, the soft tremor in her hands, I realized that no matter what came next, I would fight for her. I would uncover the truth, expose the lies, and make sure the people who betrayed us paid for what they did. But even as I embraced her, a quiet suspicion started to creep in. Someone had to have planned this carefully. Someone had to have orchestrated the lies, the cover-ups, the hospital records. And whoever it was, they were still watching, still waiting. I couldn't let them get away with it. Not after 10 years. Not after all the grief, all the loss. I glanced at Emma again, and for the first time, I allowed myself to hope. 10 years ago, I had lost her. But now, she was here, alive, and looking at me with trust one hadn't earned yet. And that trust, that fragile, beautiful connection, was my anchor. But I knew, deep down, that the real storm was only just beginning. The first step was simple. Find the truth. Find out who sold my daughter. And make sure they could never hurt us again. And with that thought, I made a silent promise. I wouldn't rest until justice was done. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and Luke's light breathing from the next room. Emma had been placed in the guest room, and even though I'd checked on her several times, I couldn't stop thinking about the pieces of her story. The small hints she had dropped, the memories she vaguely recalled, all pointing to a deliberate, cruel betrayal. I sat at the kitchen table, clutching a mug of coffee I wasn't even drinking, replaying every detail in my mind. 10 years. 10 years of lies. And the most terrifying thought. Someone close to me had orchestrated it. Someone I trusted. David came in quietly, his own expression heavy. Claire, we need to start figuring this out. If this is as serious as it sounds, we can't wait. We have to know who did this. I nodded. I know. I don't want to scare her. She's only just returned. He nodded, understanding. But you need answers too. We can't let this linger. Not after 10 years. I closed my eyes, thinking back to that day at the hospital. I remembered the hurried nurses, the frantic whispers, the way my mother had avoided my questions. And then the way my aunt had seemed unusually interested in keeping me away from the nursery. Something had always felt off. I made a mental note. Start with family. Start with the people I trusted. If anyone had a motive, financial gain, control, jealousy, it had to be someone who knew I would be vulnerable. The next morning, Emma was quiet at breakfast, picking at her toast. Luke was nervously asking questions, trying to understand, and I could see the anxiety in David's eyes too. Emma, I said gently, can you tell me everything you remember about the day you left? She took a deep breath. I was small. I remember the nurse taking me to a room. I was supposed to be safe. But then someone came. They didn't look angry, but they didn't stop it either. And I was given to someone else. They said I was going to a better home. My stomach twisted. Who gave you away? She shook her head. I don't know the name, but I remember her voice. And her face. She looked familiar.
Familiar.
The word echoed in my mind. Could it have been my aunt? My mother? Someone from the hospital with connections? I knew I had to be subtle. I couldn't confront anyone without evidence. If I was wrong, I'd destroy relationships forever. But if I was right, I needed proof. Later that day, while Emma rested in the guest room, I started going through old documents, hospital bills, birth records, anything I could find. Every record had been altered. Names crossed out, pages missing. Someone had covered their tracks meticulously. Then I found a small, overlooked receipt from a private agency. It was dated the day Emma disappeared. The agency had a note, delivery confirmed, payment processed. My hands shook as I read it. The handwriting was faint, but the initials, my blood ran cold. They matched someone in my family. I could feel the betrayal like a physical blow. Someone I trusted had sold my daughter. And now, 10 years later, the truth was clawing its way to the surface. I had to be careful. I couldn't confront them yet. If they suspected I was onto them, they could disappear, cover up again, or, worse, try to take Emma away. David noticed my tension. "Claire, you're thinking too much. Don't let anger take over." I nodded, forcing a calm exterior. "I know, but I can't ignore it. I have to find out who did this and why." That evening, I decided to talk to Emma alone. She was sitting on the couch, her green eyes full of uncertainty. "Emma, do you remember anything else? Any names, voices, places?" She shook her head. "I remember one more thing, a lullaby. The one only you used to sing. And I remember someone giving me a doll. They said I had to forget." My throat tightened. That doll, it had always been my favorite. The one I had given her on her first birthday. And the lullaby, the same lullaby I sang every night. Somehow, she had carried these memories across 10 years, despite everything. I hugged her close, feeling the weight of 10 lost years. "I promise, Emma, I will get you back. I will find the person who took you and make them pay." She clung to me, and for the first time in a decade, I felt a glimmer of hope. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The first clue, the receipt, the altered records, the faint initials, was just the start. I had to piece together the puzzle carefully, quietly. Whoever had done this was cunning, and they knew the system better than I did. And then, as if on cue, a soft knock at the door made me jump. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Carlson. She looked worried. "Claire, I don't know if I should say anything, but I saw someone yesterday near the hospital. Someone acting suspicious. They looked like they were hiding something." My heart skipped. This could be a lead. Or it could be nothing. But I couldn't ignore it. I looked at Emma, then at David. "We're going to the hospital tomorrow. It's time to start uncovering the truth." Emma's small hand found mine, gripping tightly. "Mom, are you sure?" I nodded.
Yes.
"We're not letting anyone hide the truth anymore." That night, as I lay awake, the receipt burned in my mind. The initials, the altered records, the whispers of betrayal, they were all pieces of a puzzle that, once solved, would reveal the person who stole my daughter from me. And I knew, without a doubt, that when the confrontation came, nothing and no one would ever be the same again. The next morning, sunlight spilled over our quiet street, but inside, my heart was pounding. Emma clutched my hand as we drove to the hospital, her small fingers trembling around mine. Luke sat in the back seat, asking questions softly, trying not to cry or panic. David kept his eyes on the road, his jaw tight. We arrived, and the hospital looked the same. Sterile white walls, the faint smell of antiseptic lingering in the air, the beeping of distant machines echoing through the halls. I swallowed hard. 10 years ago, this place had taken my daughter. Today, I was going to start taking her back. We approached the reception, and I asked to speak to someone in records. They looked at me suspiciously. "Do you have an appointment?" the clerk asked. "No," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But this is urgent. It's about a lost child, my daughter." Her eyes narrowed. "Do you have any documentation?" I handed over Emma's birth certificate. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped it. She glanced at the papers, then picked up the phone. "Wait here." Minutes passed. My stomach twisted with fear and anticipation. Emma sat quietly beside me, hugging her backpack to her chest. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She didn't know if this was safe, if she'd be sent away again, if someone would try to take her back. Finally, a nurse appeared. "Follow me," she said, her voice low. We walked down a corridor, the faint scent of antiseptic making my head spin. She led us to a small office. "I need to see the person who handled your daughter's records 10 years ago," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. The nurse hesitated. "That record has been archived. I don't think it's accessible anymore." My heart sank. Of course. 10 years of cover-up. But I wouldn't be stopped. I looked at Emma and Luke. "We're going to get this," I said softly. I promise. I spent hours there, reviewing old paperwork, tracing signatures, looking for anything out of place. That's when I found it, a note tucked in the margins of an old file. It said, "Patient transferred. Authorization signed by CM, payment received. Keep confidential." CM. Those initials hit me like a hammer. My aunt's name, Christine Miller. The same woman who had insisted I stay away from the nursery that day, who had smiled too brightly when she handed me that hospital accident report. My hands shook so badly, I could barely hold the file. I didn't speak. I just stared at Emma, whose eyes mirrored the confusion and fear I felt. I could see her processing that something was wrong, that this wasn't just a miracle, it was a conspiracy. We left the hospital, and I drove straight home, heart racing. I needed to plan. Confrontation had to be precise. I couldn't just accuse Christine without proof, but now I knew where to start. That night, I told David everything. The receipt, the altered records, the initials. "It's her," I said, voice low, raw. "Christine sold our daughter. She covered it up, made it look like an accident. She's been hiding this for 10 years. David's face hardened. "Then we're going to make her pay. But we need evidence. Hard proof. Nothing she can deny." I nodded. "I know. Tomorrow I go to her house. I need to confront her, but carefully. I need her to reveal everything without suspecting I already know." Emma, meanwhile, sat quietly on the couch, her small hand holding mine. "Mom, will she take me away again?" she asked, voice trembling. I pulled her close.
"No, sweetheart.
"This time we're not letting anyone hurt you. Ever again." The next day, I drove to Christine's house, heart hammering with fear and rage. Her front yard looked immaculate, flowers blooming as if nothing had ever happened. But I knew better. Behind that perfect exterior was a web of lies, betrayal, and greed. I rang the doorbell. Christine opened the door, her smile sharp, controlled, practiced. "Claire." "What a surprise," she said. But her eyes flicked to Emma, and I saw it, a hint of recognition, of panic. I held Emma's hand tightly. "Christine, we need to talk." She stepped aside, letting us in. The house smelled faintly of perfume and cookies, the kind of domestic normalcy she always tried to show the world. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes.
She knew I knew.
I took a deep breath. 10 years ago, you made a choice. You sold my daughter. You covered it up.
And today?
I want to know why. Christine's eyes widened. For a split second, I saw the mask crack. Then she laughed softly, almost mockingly. "Claire, you don't know what you're talking about. Calm down." "I know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, voice steady but sharp. "The receipt, the hospital file, the initials. CM, that's you. I want the truth." Her smile faltered. The first crack in her control. I could see it. The betrayal I had felt for 10 years now boiled inside me, a mix of anger, grief, and determination. "You don't understand," she whispered, almost too quietly. "It wasn't supposed to go like this." I felt a chill. Her confession was starting. But I didn't know the full story yet, and I had to be careful. I had to hear everything. And as Christine led me into the living room, I knew this was it. The moment that would reveal the first layer of the terrible truth. Christine's living room smelled faintly of vanilla and polished wood, a cruel contrast to the storm raging inside me. Emma clung to my side, her small hand gripping mine, while Christine sat on the couch, her posture rigid, a mask of calm she was clearly struggling to maintain. "Claire, you don't understand," she began again, her voice shaky. "It wasn't supposed to go like this." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Then explain it to me. Why sell her? Why cover it up? And how could you do this to me, to her?" Christine swallowed hard, her lips pressed into a thin line. She finally spoke, her voice low, almost a whisper. "Money, desperation. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. I thought I was helping your family." "Helping?" My blood boiled. "Helping? Selling my baby is helping? Christine, she's my child. You took 10 years of my life. 10 years of my grief, my tears, my soul. Emma's eyes welled with tears. I could see her shaking, the hurt in her face mirroring my own. Mom, she whispered, but I gently pressed a finger to her lips. I need to hear everything, I said to Christine, my voice quieter now, but no less sharp. The truth. Every lie, every plan, every person who helped you cover this up. She hesitated, looking around nervously. It started with the hospital. I knew you were struggling financially, and when that agency approached me, they promised it would help us all. I didn't know they would take her far away, keep her hidden for 10 years. I felt bile rise in my throat. You sold her. You sold my child for money. Tears welled in Christine's eyes. I had no choice. Your mother was pushing me, saying it was better for everyone. She wanted you to be free of the burden, Claire. They said you'd never forgive us, that this was the only way to protect the family. I didn't know they would, her voice broke. I shook my head, disbelief and rage colliding. Your only way to protect the family was to steal my daughter from me? To erase 10 years of her life? And for money? Christine didn't answer. She just stared at the floor, trembling. I could see the weight of her guilt, a lifetime of it, pressing down on her. But guilt didn't undo what she had done. I turned to Emma, pulling her into my arms. She buried her face in my shoulder, small arms wrapping around me tightly. Mom, why did they lie to me too? I kissed the top of her head, feeling my own tears burn. They were afraid of getting caught, afraid of facing the truth. But now it's coming out. Christine's voice cut through the silence. They made me sign papers, Claire. I couldn't resist. They threatened to ruin everything, your family, my career, everyone. I was trapped. Trapped. I echoed bitterly. You think selling my daughter, keeping her from me, and lying for 10 years makes you a victim? Emma lived through it. I lived through it. I carried the grief every single day.
You made your choice, Christine.
And now you have to face it. Emma's small voice trembled. Mom, can we go home? Yes, sweetheart, I whispered, my heart aching but determined. Home. But first we have to make sure this never happens to anyone again. We need to get the proof, the papers, everything Christine tried to hide. Christine's face went pale. You can't. No one will believe you. Everything is buried. Everyone thinks she was gone, that she died. I looked her in the eyes, the fire in my chest burning brighter than my grief.
No.
Not anymore. I have Emma. I have the evidence. And you will answer for every single lie. Every single second you tried to erase her life. Every single day you tried to steal my family from me. Christine slumped back into the couch, defeated. Her world, which had seemed so controlled for so long, was crumbling before her eyes. And I realized, finally, the depth of the power I had now, the truth, my daughter, and the chance to reclaim what was stolen. Emma looked up at me, her green eyes filled with both fear and hope. Mom, will they hurt us? I shook my head, stroking her hair.
No, baby.
They can't. Not anymore. This time, we're in control. This time, justice is ours. The house felt heavy with tension, the air thick with years of lies and betrayal. But I could feel it too, a shift, a step toward healing. The first thread of truth had been pulled, and the tapestry of lies was starting to unravel. David, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. Claire, we need to collect everything. Every document, every witness, every proof. This is just the beginning. But once it's out, there's no turning back. I nodded.
Yes.
No turning back. Christine may have tried to steal 10 years from us, but she can't take the rest of our lives. And she can't hide the truth anymore. And as we left her house that day, Emma holding my hand tightly, I realized the battle was only starting. But for the first time in 10 years, hope burned brighter than grief. We had the first confession. We had the first lead. And soon, everyone involved would have to answer for what they had done. But Christine's next words, whispered just as we left, hinted at a secret even darker. Someone else had been involved, someone we trusted completely, and their betrayal was far from over. The ride home was silent. Emma clung to my hand, her small fingers trembling as she tried to process what had just happened. Luke sat beside her, nervously fidgeting with his backpack strap. Even David, usually calm and collected, seemed tense, his jaw tight, and his hands gripping the steering wheel like he could steer us out of the storm if only he drove faster. Christine's confession replayed in my mind like a broken record. She had sold my daughter, covered it up, lied for 10 years. But her whispered warning as we left, that someone else had been involved, sent a shiver down my spine. I could feel the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. Someone else. Someone I trusted completely. And for 10 years, they had been hiding in plain sight, enjoying the life I thought was mine to protect. When we got home, I locked the door behind us and sat at the kitchen table with Emma. "Sweetheart, do you remember anyone else from that day at the hospital?" I asked gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Emma hesitated, her green eyes wide. I remember a man.
Tall.
Dark hair. He smiled at me. He said everything would be fine, that I would have a good life. But I think he lied too. My heart skipped a beat.
A man.
Someone Christine hadn't mentioned. Someone whose presence she had conveniently omitted. Could it be my mother? My father? Or someone I had trusted completely, who had orchestrated the sale and made sure I never found out? David leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "Claire, we need to map this out. Start from the beginning. Who had access? Who had motive?" I nodded, my mind racing. Christine handled the hospital part, but she didn't do this alone. She was an accomplice, not the mastermind. Someone else pulled the strings. Luke piped up, his small voice trembling. "Mom, do you think Grandma knew?" I froze. My mother, the woman I had confided in, who had always acted like my protector. Could she really be capable of this? My heart ached at the thought, but the pieces fit. The way she had avoided me that day. The urgency in her voice when I asked questions. The subtle pressure she had put on Christine. I swallowed hard, trying to push down the nausea. It's possible, but we need proof. We can't just accuse anyone. If we're wrong. Emma, sensing my tension, whispered, "Mom, will I be safe?" I pulled her into my arms. "Yes, baby. I promise. No one can hurt you again."
Not now.
Not ever. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, piecing together the puzzle. Christine had been desperate, yes. But desperation alone didn't explain the careful planning, the altered records, the way everything had been covered up so completely. Someone else had orchestrated it, someone who had the means, the motive, and the connections to make 10 years of lies possible. The next morning, I called my best friend, someone I had trusted with my life, Rachel. She had been by my side during Emma's supposed death, holding me when I cried, helping me navigate the endless grief. She picked up immediately. "Claire, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice warm. I took a deep breath. "Rachel, I need your help. Something happened. Emma, she's back.
Alive.
And someone in my family sold her. I need to figure out who." There was a pause. Then, her voice dropped, cautious. "Claire, be careful. You're opening a door that maybe should stay closed." I frowned. "Rachel, this isn't about secrets anymore. This is about Emma, about the truth, about justice. I can't ignore it." She sighed, and I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "All right, I'll help, but quietly and carefully. There are powerful people involved, ones you never suspect." My stomach tightened. Powerful people. My mind immediately went to Christine's whispered warning. She wasn't the only one. And whoever else was involved, they had influence. They could destroy us if they caught on. Over the next few days, I began digging quietly. Old letters, bank records, phone logs. Anything that might point to the person Christine had been protecting. And then, I found it. A series of transfers, small amounts at first, then larger sums, all going to a single account, one tied to my mother. I couldn't believe it. My own mother. The woman who had cradled me as I wept over my lost child. The woman who had promised to protect me. The woman who had taken part in selling my daughter. I felt my world tilt. Betrayal so deep, so personal, that it took my breath away. I thought about Emma, about her life, her innocence, her confusion. How could someone I trusted do this? How could they live with themselves? Emma came running into the kitchen, her small face anxious. "Mom, are you okay?" I knelt and held her close. "Yes, baby,
I'm okay.
but we have to be very careful. We're getting close to the truth. And the people who did this, they'll do anything to protect themselves." David joined us, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Claire, we have the proof now. But we need a plan.
Carefully.
One step at a time." I nodded, determination hardening inside me. 10 years of lies, 10 years of stolen moments, 10 years of grief. But now, the veil was lifting. I would uncover every secret, expose every betrayal, and reclaim the life that had been stolen from Emma and me. And I realized, finally, the real fight had just begun. Tomorrow, I would confront my mother, the person I had trusted most, and finally face the darkest betrayal of all. But I didn't know if I was ready for the storm it would unleash. I couldn't sleep that night. Every shadow in our home felt heavier, every creak of the floorboards louder. Emma was asleep in her room, clutching her little doll, the same one she remembered from my lullabies, while Luke had fallen into an uneasy slumber on the couch. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the documents I had uncovered. The bank transfers, the altered hospital files, the receipt Christine had given me. All of it pointed to one person. One person I had trusted with my entire heart. My mother. My hands trembled as I dialed her number. When she answered, her voice was warm, familiar. "Claire, is everything okay?" "Mother, we need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. "In person."
Now.
There was a pause, and I could hear the faint sound of her catching her breath. "All right, come over." I hung up, my stomach twisting. I hadn't seen her in months, not since Emma returned. And now, I was about to confront her about the unthinkable, selling my child, orchestrating lies for 10 years, and hiding behind the facade of family love. When I arrived, she opened the door with that same practiced smile, but it faltered when she saw Emma beside me, wide-eyed and cautious. "Claire, Emma, what are you doing here?" I stepped inside, holding Emma's hand tightly. "Mother, I know everything. The hospital, the transfers, Christine. You were behind it all." Her face went pale. Her lips trembled. "Claire, I can explain." I cut her off, my voice rising with a quiet intensity. "Explain? You sold my daughter. You lied to me for 10 years. You let me grieve over a child who is alive. How could you do this?" She sank into a chair, her hands shaking. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I thought it was for the best. I wanted to protect you and your family. The money, it was supposed to help, to secure a future for all of us. I never wanted to hurt Emma or you." "Protect me?" I echoed bitterly. "By stealing my child? By lying? By letting me live in agony every single day?" Emma's small voice trembled. "Grandma, why?" My mother looked at her, tears spilling down her face. I was afraid, Emma. Afraid you'd be taken from me too. Afraid your mother would suffer. I made terrible choices. I thought I was doing the right thing, but her voice broke completely. I could feel my own tears welling, not just for myself, but for Emma. 10 years of stolen moments, birthdays missed, bedtime stories never told. And for what? Money? Control? Frida? "You made a choice," I whispered, voice trembling. "And that choice cost my daughter 10 years of her life. And 10 years of mine. There is no excuse. None." My mother sobbed. The mask of control finally shattered. I was scared. I was foolish. I thought I could fix everything before anyone found out. But it all went too far. I didn't know Christine would. I didn't know she'd go that far. I shook my head. You didn't just fail me. You failed Emma. And for 10 years, I've been trying to rebuild a life you stole from us. But I have her now, and we're taking back what was ours. Emma stepped closer, looking at her grandmother. Mom, what happens now? I knelt, taking Emma's small hands in mine. Now, we get the truth. Everyone involved has to face what they did. And we make sure nothing like this ever happens again. We take control of our life, our family, and our future. David, who had followed silently, placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. Claire will do this carefully, step by step. But the first confrontation, the first truth, it's done. You know who the real players are now. My mother's sobs filled the room, mingled with the weight of her guilt. And I realized in that moment that the betrayal ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. She hadn't acted alone. Christine had been her accomplice, and likely there were others, perhaps hospital staff, perhaps distant relatives, who had turned a blind eye, or worse, actively participated. I looked at Emma, my heart breaking and mending all at once. Sweetheart, we're not finished. But we're together now. And that matters. We have each other, and we'll rebuild, piece by piece. Emma clung to me, her small body trembling. Mom, can we be safe? Yes, baby. This time, no one can touch us.
Not now.
Not ever. But deep down, I knew the hardest part wasn't over. The confrontation with my mother had unveiled only the first layer of betrayal. There were still hidden players, still secrets in the shadows. Christine had confessed, my mother had admitted guilt, but the people who orchestrated the entire scheme, who had pulled the strings from behind the curtain, were still out there. I felt the weight of the next steps pressing down on me. I had to gather proof, confront the remaining culprits, and ensure justice was served. And I knew, no matter how painful, no matter how terrifying, I could no longer be paralyzed by fear. I had to be relentless. For Emma. For me. For the years that were stolen from us. That night, I tucked Emma into bed, her small face finally relaxed in sleep. I whispered the lullaby I had sung 10 years ago, feeling the familiar warmth of her tiny hand in mine. And as I watched her drift into peaceful slumber, I promised myself, and her, that nothing would ever take her from me again. The first battles were fought, the first truths revealed, but the war for justice, for answers, was far from over. And I knew the next confrontation, the one that would expose the masterminds, would shake our family to its core. Tomorrow, I would begin unraveling the rest of the network, the hidden hands behind Christine and my mother, and uncover a betrayal so deep that even I wasn't ready for what it would reveal. I woke up the next morning with the kind of heaviness that doesn't sit on your chest. It sits in your bones. The kind that reminds you that the ground beneath your feet isn't solid anymore. It's shifting, cracking, threatening to give way at any second. Emma was still asleep, curled on her side with her doll tucked under her chin. The morning light touched her face softly, the way sunlight touches something fragile, like it knows it has to be gentle. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, just watching her breathe. 10 years stolen. 10 years of memories missing. 10 years I could never, ever get back. But now I had a direction. Now I had a truth, ugly, painful, and incomplete, but a truth nonetheless. And today, I needed to dig deeper. I entered the kitchen expecting silence, but David was already there. The coffee steaming beside him. Eyes tired, jaw tight, his posture stiff like he had spent the entire night wondering whether he should stay or go. He looked up when he heard me. Claire, he said softly, I know yesterday was a lot, but you're not done. And you can't do what comes next alone. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms protectively. I don't know what comes next.
Eva confronted Kristen.
I've confronted my mother. But this scheme, it's bigger. Someone else had to be involved. He nodded slowly. Someone with power. Someone with access. Someone who handled everything behind the scenes. I swallowed hard. The hospital. David didn't respond. He didn't need to. I exhaled shakily. There was a name I kept seeing in those files, the attending doctor who handled Emma's case the night she died. Dr. Marlowe. David's brow furrowed. You think he was involved? I don't know, I admitted. But he signed the death report, and that entire report was forged. So either he was sloppy or he was paid. David rubbed his thumb across his jaw. Then we go talk to him. The hospital that stole my child. Walking into that hospital felt like stepping into the mouth of a memory that wanted to swallow me whole. The disinfectant smell, the faint beeping from heart monitors, the polished floors that reflected every fear back at you. I hadn't been here in years. Not since the night they took Emma from me. David stayed by my side as we walked toward the administrative wing. My palms were sweating. My voice trembled every time I inhaled. My heart raced like I was standing at the edge of some enormous truth. We reached Dr. Marlowe's office. The door was slightly open. Inside, he was typing something on his computer. Older now, gray at the temples, but unmistakably the man who had looked me in the eye and told me my daughter died. I knocked gently. He glanced up, annoyed at first, but then something flashed across his face. Recognition. And fear. Claire, he breathed. I didn't expect to ever see you again. His voice shook just enough to confirm it. He wasn't surprised I was alive. He was surprised I came back. I need answers, I said quietly. And this time, you're going to tell me the truth. He stood, closing the office door before lowering his voice. You shouldn't be here. David stepped forward. We're not leaving. Dr. Marlowe looked between us, panic growing in his eyes. If they find out I talked. Who? I demanded. He sucked in a shaky breath. Your mother wasn't the only one involved. She didn't have the power to change hospital records. She had help. Influential help. My heart dropped into my stomach. From inside or outside? I whispered. His eyes softened with guilt. Both. I felt the air leave my lungs. Both. Inside the hospital and outside. Meaning someone else in my life, someone connected to me, had been part of the scheme. Tell me who, I said through clenched teeth. He closed his eyes, shaking his head helplessly. Claire, I swear I wanted to tell you years ago. But I was threatened. My family was threatened. Who helped her? My voice rose before I even realized it. He swallowed hard, then finally said the name. And when he did, my knees weakened. My vision blurred. David grabbed my arm to keep me steady. Because the name that came out of his mouth wasn't a stranger. Wasn't a distant relative. Wasn't someone from outside the circle. It was someone living under my roof. Someone who had pretended to love me. Someone who had dried my tears. Someone who had slept beside me while I mourned a living child. Dr. Marlowe whispered the name again, softer, ashamed. And the world inside me cracked.
No, he whispered.
No, you're lying. I'm not, he said, defeated. He paid to expedite the paperwork, to make sure the adoption was irreversible. He handled the financial side. Your mother handled the rest. David turned to me slowly, disbelief etched across his face. Claire, he meant. My husband. I choked out. Mark. My throat closed, the room spinning.
Mark.
The man I had shared a life with. The man who held me while I cried until I couldn't breathe. The man who told me we would survive losing our daughter together. He knew. He knew. He wasn't just aware of the lie. He was part of it. He helped orchestrate it. He helped bury our daughter's identity while I buried my sanity. Why? I whispered. Dr. Marlowe looked at me with haunted eyes. Because he said you weren't stable enough. That you were overwhelmed. That he feared you wouldn't be able to raise 2 children. He said he needed to protect the family. My heart felt like it was tearing inside my chest. Protect the family? By destroying it. David's hand tightened on my shoulder. He didn't speak, he didn't have to. He knew there were no words that could soften this kind of pain. Dr. Marlowe's voice dropped lower. Claire, he was the one who brought your mother into it, not the other way around. Everything inside me went still. Cold. Empty. He wasn't manipulated. He wasn't misled. He was the beginning. I turned away from Dr. Marlowe, my voice barely a whisper. David, take me home. Because there was only one thing left to do now. I was going to confront my husband, and this time he wasn't going to run from the truth. As we left the hospital, one truth pulsed in my chest. The betrayal wasn't just deep, it was waiting for me at home. And I wasn't sure what kind of woman I would become by the time this confrontation was over. I walked through the front door, and the house felt different. Heavy, silent, like it had been holding its breath, waiting for me to come back with the truth in my hands. Emma clutched my hand, sensing my tension, her small fingers trembling as if she knew the storm that was about to hit. Mark was in the living room, scrolling on his phone, the same casual posture I had once trusted. My stomach twisted, ball rising, anger pooling like fire under my skin. "Mark," I said calmly, voice low but trembling. "We need to talk. Now." He looked up, eyes narrowing, but I saw the first flicker of fear cross his face. "I know everything," I said. "Christine. My mother.
Dr. Marlowe.
And now, I know your part. Every lie, every transaction, every time you held me while plotting behind my back. I know." Mark's face paled, his fingers tightening around the phone. "Claire, it's not what you think." "Not what I think," I interrupted, stepping closer, my voice rising just enough to shake the room. "Mark, you helped sell my daughter. You watched me cry every day for 10 years. And you thought what? That was protecting me? Protecting us." Emma peeked around me, her voice small. "Mom, he really did it?" I knelt down, pulling her close. "Yes, baby. But no one can hurt us now. Not ever. Not him. Not anyone." Mark swallowed hard, looking at me with a mix of guilt and desperation. "Claire, I thought you'd never find out. I thought my mother, your mother, we thought we were protecting everyone. You were unstable. You couldn't handle it. I did what I thought was best. Best." I hissed, my voice breaking with rage. "Best is letting your wife believe her child is dead? Best is lying for a decade while the person we were supposed to protect suffered and grew up not knowing her real family?" Mark flinched, as if the words physically hit him. "You lied to me every single day," I continued, pacing the living room. "You lied to Emma. You lied to everyone. You were the mastermind behind the scenes, the reason my mother felt she could do it. You made it possible. You took her away." He looked down at the floor, trembling. I never wanted you to hurt. I thought I was saving her. Saving the family." "The family?" I laughed bitterly, tears streaming down my face. "The family? You destroyed the family. Do you have any idea what I've lived through for 10 years? The grief, the nights I couldn't breathe, the birthdays I missed, the milestones I thought were gone forever?" Mark shook his head, silent. "And now," I said, taking a deep, shuddering breath, "you're going to pay for every single lie. For every single tear. You're going to watch as I rebuild what you tried to destroy. Emma is safe, and I will make sure justice is served." David stepped forward, steadying me. "Claire, let's not make this about yelling. We have the proof. We confront him carefully. We make sure he can't manipulate or escape it." I nodded, pulling out the documents I had collected, Christine's confessions, my mother's admissions, the hospital records, the bank transfers. I laid them out on the coffee table. Mark's face went pale as he saw the paper trail, the evidence, the undeniable proof of his betrayal. He sank into the couch, hands in his hair. "Claire, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice cold now measured. "You thought you could control everything. You thought you could decide what was right for everyone. You thought I wouldn't find out. But here we are. And now, the world will know the truth. Christine already admitted everything to the authorities. The hospital has records. And every transfer, every bribe, every lie, all of it is documented." Emma stepped closer to me, her tiny hand clutching mine. "Mom, is he going to jail?" I looked down at her, tears in my eyes. "Yes, baby. He's going to face the consequences. Because what he did was wrong. And no one, not even someone you love, is above justice." Mark's eyes darted to Emma. "Claire, don't involve her. She doesn't." I raised a hand, cutting him off. She's involved because she's the reason this ends now. She's alive because of me. And you're going to answer for every day you took from her. David placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. Call the authorities. This ends today. I nodded, my hand still trembling, but my mind clear. 10 years of pain, 10 years of lies, 10 years of stolen memories. It all led to this moment. I reached for my phone and dialed. The operator answered, and within minutes, officers arrived. Mark didn't resist, didn't fight. He knew the net had closed around him. The betrayal, the lies, the decades of manipulation, finally, it would be exposed. As the officers escorted him out, I held Emma close. She buried her face in my chest, crying softly, and I whispered over and over, "It's over, baby. It's finally over." For the first time in 10 years, I felt something like relief, something like hope. But the scars of betrayal ran deep, and I knew the journey of healing, for Emma, for me, even for my mother, was just beginning. I stepped out onto the porch, breathing in the crisp evening air, and watched the sunset streak across the sky. 10 years of darkness behind me, and for the first time, a glimmer of light ahead. The betrayal had been exposed, the mastermind arrested, but the truth still lingered like a shadow. How would Emma process 10 years of lies? Could our family ever heal completely? And what secrets had my mother still not told me? The days after Mark's arrest were quiet, almost unreal. Emma and I spent the mornings in the sunlit kitchen, baking cookies she had missed making as a child, her laughter filling the spaces that had been empty for 10 long years. It felt strange at first, normal life after a storm that had lasted a decade. But it was real, and we had each other. I watched her carefully, memorizing every gesture, every little habit, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, the tiny hums she made while drawing, the way her eyes lit up when I told her I remembered the lullaby we used to sing together. I had learned something crucial over the last weeks. Healing wasn't about pretending the pain never existed. It was about choosing to live, even with it. My mother had retreated into herself, guilt etched into every line on her face. But she wanted to make amends. One afternoon, I found her sitting at the table, hands folded, eyes downcast. "I don't expect forgiveness," she whispered. "I don't deserve it. But I want to be part of your life, Emma's life, if you'll let me." I took a deep breath. "You betrayed me, Mother. You betrayed Emma. But I also know that holding on to anger forever won't fix anything. You'll have to earn back trust." Slowly and carefully. She nodded, tears streaming. "I'll do whatever it takes." Emma, sitting quietly beside me, looked up. "Mom, can we let her try?" I smiled softly. "Yes, baby. We can try." It wasn't forgiveness yet. Not fully. But it was a beginning. Emma adapted surprisingly quickly to her new reality. She asked questions about her early life, about her adoption, about why she wasn't told sooner. I answered honestly in small pieces, always checking her reactions, giving her space to process. One night, I tucked her into bed and sang the lullaby I had sung to her as a baby. She reached up, hugging my neck tightly. "Mom, I knew it was you," she whispered. "Even when I was scared, even when I didn't understand, I knew." Her words broke me in the most beautiful way. 10 years of grief, anger, and loss distilled into a single truth. She had always remembered me. And now we had a chance to rebuild the life we were meant to share. I started documenting everything. The hospital's cover-up, the betrayal of Mark, my mother's involvement. I wanted justice, yes, but also accountability, so no other family would suffer like we did. Christine was arrested, the hospital faced legal consequences, and slowly, life began to settle. Emma's laughter returned, louder and freer each day. I realized that while the past could not be erased, the present was ours. Every hug, every bedtime story, every shared smile was a victory. I thought about the 10 years we lost, about the nights I cried alone, about the trust one had misplaced. And I realized that betrayal teaches you something no comfort ever can: resilience. I had been broken, yes, but I had also survived. I had found my daughter. I had exposed the lies. I had reclaimed our life. And most importantly, I had learned that love, true love, the kind that mothers and daughters share, can heal even the deepest wounds. Emma curled up beside me on the couch one evening, drawing pictures of our family. "Mom, I'm happy now," she said softly, "because we're together, and nothing can take that away." I held her close, feeling the weight of every stolen moment lift slightly from my shoulders. "Yes, baby," I whispered. "Nothing can ever take that away." I share this story not just because it's mine, but because I know there are families out there, mothers and daughters, parents and children, who have been torn apart by lies, secrets, and betrayal. If you've ever felt grief, loss, or heartbreak, know this. Healing is possible. Even after years of pain, even after betrayal, love can bring you back together. Would you have confronted your loved ones if the truth was this deep? Would you have found the courage to rebuild your life, piece by piece, after such a betrayal? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts, your stories, and your hope. And if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories of survival, resilience, and the power of family. Because sometimes the light we need comes from the people we never stopped loving, even when the world tried to take them away. No matter how far the world tries to pull us apart, love always finds a way home.